Well, hello there. It's time for some Jeopardy. This PowerPoint and video will help get you ready for the online test I'll be assigning to you in the coming days. Quick warning though, this Jeopardy game does not represent the test as closely as it used to. The biology teachers all agreed that we would not be publishing the unit test that we all use online for obvious reasons. The quiz that I have, the test that I have created for you has some of the questions from the previous test. It also has new questions, but between this Jeopardy review, your note packet, and access to your reading notes for those of you that did them, and your note packet and the book, you should do quite well on it. So I'm going to walk through the questions. I'm going to give you a decent amount of time to look up answers. But remember, if I am going too fast and you want more time to look up the answers, because remember, looking up the answers and reading the answers before I give it to you helps you memorize it. You are always welcome to pause the video. Also, if me talking and speaking is an interaction, or the 80s music is an distraction for you, you are welcome to mute the video. I will be showing you all the questions. I will be showing you all the answers. But if you like 80s music, by the way, today's 80s music playlist is brought to you by Apple Music, and way too much time on my hands. So here we go. Let's get into it. Genes that mask or are stronger than others are said to be blank. If two plants are big T, and big T, little t, they will have the same blank. All the notes for you. All right, about 20 seconds. All right, here we go. Genes that are said to mask or are stronger than others are said to be dominant. If two plants are big T, and big T, little t, the big T gives it the dominant phenotype or characteristic or appearance. All right, here we go. Next up. If pea plants have two different alleles for the same trait, that's a misspelling. I'm going to go ahead and make that correction right now. Oh my goodness. Have two different alleles for the same trait, they are said to be blank. Being tall is dominant to being short. A man heterozygous for tall and a short woman have children. What is the probability in a fraction that their kids will be short? Let's see here. To give you guys about a minute to look up these answers. Gary Newman, famous 80s song, Cars. Also, I would recognize for all the genetics problems, not a bad idea to pause this video, quickly work it out with a couple of the 5 steps, so you are proving to yourself that you know how to work them. Some of you that are really good at that stuff, you can just jump straight to what the gametes are going to be, plug them into a Punnett square. All right, about 20 more seconds. All right, here we go. If pea plants have two different alleles for the same trait, they are said to be heterozygous. Remember, that'd be like a capital T and a little t. Being tall is dominant to being short. A man heterozygous for tall, and a short woman have children. What is the probability and fraction that their kids will be short? That is 1/2. Let's change. All right. All right, here we go. A genetics problem for you. Color blindness is a dominant sex-linked trait. A woman who is a carrier for the trait, remember, women are XX, and a man who has normal vision have kids. Remember, sex-linked traits do not appear on the Y chromosome. Why? That's just the way it is. I'm sorry, I had to go there. Men are XY. What is the phenotypic ratio expected in the children? Give you guys a minute or so to work on this one. Oh yeah, Kim Carnes, Betty Davis eyes. All right, I'm going to show you guys the solution in a second. Well, I'm not going to show you the steps. So if you haven't finished working out this problem, feel free to pause the video until you are. Here we go. There's a 1-to-1-to-1-to-1 woman with normal vision to woman with color blindness to man with normal vision to man with color blindness. Okay. Homologous chromosomes, sex chromosomes, and autosomes are all shown in a blank. Gregor Mendel used pea plants to show the blank of traits or characteristics. You guys about 30 seconds for this one. About 10 more seconds.
She's ferocious, and she knows just what it takes to make it progress.
All right, here we go. Homologous chromosomes, sex chromosomes, and autosomes are all shown in a karyotype. Remember, a karyotype is a picture of all of the pairs of chromosomes for whatever organism it is. If you remember, humans have 23 different chromosomes. Therefore, if they are in pairs, that'd be 46 chromosomes, which is reduced to 23 individual chromosomes when gametes are produced. Sex cells, eggs for females, and sperm cells for males. Gregor Mendel used pea plants to show the inheritance of traits or characteristics. All right, when black and white parent chickens produce a speckled chick, this is an example of blank. Remember, speckled means both of those traits appear in the offspring, or they appear, hint, together. Human skin color differences are an example of what? You guys about 30 seconds to look these up. Hopefully you're not looking them up. Hopefully you know the answer to these questions already. All right, the breakup song, Greg Kihn Band. Also, not a bad idea to keep track of your score. If you know the answer to a question, give yourself a point. If you don't know the answer to the question, obviously don't give yourself a point. Once we get back to the game board, I will tell you how many points are possible, and that'll give you a good idea of how ready you are to take the test. Here we go. The answers. When a black and white pair of chickens produce speckled chick, this is an example of co-dominance. Both dominant traits appear in the offspring, therefore they appear together, and co means together. Human skin color differences are an example of polygenic traits. All right, so what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Let's see, 12 and 6 is 18, 22, 25, 28. 31, 35, 38, 42, 46, 49, and 49, and that would be 52 total points available in this game. I'd say if you're anywhere above 40, you're probably with resources, ready to take the test. Of course, you're going to do what you're going to do. All right, here we go. Random. In the P generation, a tall plant was crossed with a short plant. Short plants reappeared in the F2 generation because the allele for shortness and the allele for tallness blanked when the F1 plants produced gametes. Down syndrome is also referred to as blank 21. Second question I know is in section 14-2 of the book. First one, I believe, is in section 11.1 or 11.2. Let's see. Oh, yeah, classic 80s tune, Whip It Devo. All right, here we go, about 15 seconds. All right, here we go. Those alleles get separated or segregated. Remember, the only way to end up showing up with the recessive trait is if that allele gets separated from the allele for the dominant trait. And obviously, you'd have to have a recessive allele from the mother, a recessive allele from the father to get both, and that would give you the recessive trait. Remember, Down syndrome is a situation caused by non-disjunction, where the chromosomes don't separate during gamete formation. And what would happen is with chromosome number 21, let's say for the father, the chromosomes don't separate and you end up with a sperm cell with two chromosome number 21s. Obviously, that sperm cell would have to be the one that fertilizes the egg. The egg has a single chromosome number 21. So now we have 3 chromosome number 21s, and that is what trisomy means. All right, onward. A capital R represents a dominant allele, and a lowercase r represents a recessive allele. What would the genotype of the hybrid be? The principle of blank states that some alleles are dominant and some are recessive, and the genetic makeup of an organism is called its blank. I'll give you about a minute for this one. Let's see. Oh, yeah, some John Cougar Mellencamp, Jack and Diane.
Little ditty about Jack and Diane, two American kids growing up in the heartland. Jack is gonna be football.
All right, about another 20 seconds for you. Remember, when you are preparing for the test, you want to have all of your notes and resources organized. You will have a limited period of time to complete the test. You will not have enough time to look everything up. So you're going to want to have some notes maybe on a piece of paper about what different types of content are found in the different sections. Have access to your book available, have your note packet available, and certainly have gone through those a couple times before you take the test. All right, here we go. Capital R represents dominant allele, and a little case r represents a recessive allele. The genotype would be big R, little r, that is the hybrid. Principle of dominance states that some alleles are dominant and some are recessive. That's an easy one. The genetic makeup of an organism is its genotype. Remember, genotype is genetic makeup. Those are the letters that we use to represent the traits. The actual physical appearance or characteristic is phenotype. Phenotype, physical. Phenotype, physical. Genotype, genetic. Genotype, genetic. All right, onward. A heterozygous plant and a homozygous recessive small plant are crossed. What's the probability in a percentage that the dominant trait will be seen in the offspring? And then sketch a chromosome and label both the centromere and the chromatids. So 1 point for the genetics problem, 1 point for each correct labeling of a chromosome and a centromere.
Hold on to 16
as long as you can.
Changes come around real soon, make us wear. Oh yeah, life goes on. Don't have to thrill. Oh yeah, life goes on. Don't have to thrill.
About 30 more seconds. All right, here we go. But before we do, let's see. Little go-go's. Okay, heterozygous plant and a homozygous recessive small plant are crossed. The probability and a percentage that the dominant trait will be seen in the offspring is 50%. And of course, the central region that connects the two chromatids is the centromere, and the chromatids are the individual halves of the chromosomes themselves. Again, 1 point for centromere, 1 point for the chromatids, and 1 point for the correct percentage. 4-point question. Although women with AB blood and a man homozygous for A blood have children, what are the possible phenotypes of their children? What is the genotype of the woman? And what are the 2 genotypes for A blood? 1 point for possible phenotypes of the children, 1 point for the genotype of the woman, and 1 point for each of the 2 possible genotypes for A-type blood. Remember, I was flexible and gave you the ability to do the genotypes differently, to use one symbol versus another. All right, about another 20 seconds. Next up, Kids in America, Kim Wilde. All right, here we go, the answer. Okay, so let's see. What are the possible phenotypes of the children? Possible phenotype is going to be AB blood and A blood. Remember, the phenotypes are the actual blood types themselves. Let's see. The genotype of the woman, she's IA, IB. Remember, you can have this capital A just here. You don't have to have it as an exponent. Same with the B. And then the 2 possibilities or 2 genotypes for A blood are I capital A. That's the homozygous dominant. And the I, this should be a capital A. My bad. Little I, that is the heterozygote. So, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, and 1 point. There we go. Blank is the likelihood that a particular event will occur. The visible or physical characteristics of an organism are called blanks. An organism that has the same genes for a particular trait, like big A, or little a, is said to be blank. Just a bunch of vocabulary here for you. This one shouldn't take too long. Okay, about 30 seconds. All right, wrap up your answers or pause the video to finish looking them up. All right, and here we go. Probability is the likelihood that a particular event will occur. Phenotypes are the visible or physical phenotype, characteristics of an organism. An organism that has the same genes for a particular trait or the same alleles, big A, little a, they are homozygous, obviously. Homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive. All right, next up. True or false? IB, and IB little I both result in the same phenotype. Most sex-linked traits are found on the blank chromosome. And how many pairs of chromosomes are found in humans? Let's see. Little Maniac by Michael Sembello. One of the songs in the movie Fame. This one should be easy. We talked about this when you guys did the sex-linked trait problem. About 30 seconds. All right, answers coming. True or false? I big B, and I big B little I both result in the B blood type. That is true. Most sex-linked traits are found on the X chromosome. There are a few genes found on the Y chromosome, but almost all of them are found on the X chromosome. And humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, or 46 in total, unless we're talking about gametes. And of course, gametes have half. That would mean 23 chromosomes from the mother, 23 chromosomes from the father, still totaling 46. That would end up in the child. All right, next up. The law of blank states that one gene or allele from each pair goes to each sex cell. If a man heterozygous for dominant brown hair and a woman with blonde hair have kids, what would the phenotypic ratio be? The principles of blank can be used to predict the traits of the offspring produced by genetic crosses, and a blank shows all the possible results of a genetic cross, the genotypes of the offspring, and alleles that are found in the gametes. You guys a little bit over a minute for this one. Oh, Toto, Africa. About 30 more seconds for these questions. By the way, who misses basketball? Who misses all sports? Who misses high school sports? Some of you actually doing the sport. Some of you actually just cheering for the sports. Oh, yeah. All right, about 10 seconds. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. The law of segregation states that one gene or allele from each pair goes to each sex cell. If a man heterozygous for dominant brown hair and a woman with blonde hair have children, what would the phenotypic ratio be? That would be 1-to-1 or 2-to-2 brown to blonde hair. The principles of probability can be used to predict the traits of the offspring produced by genetic crosses, and a Punnett square shows all the possible results of a genetic cross, the genotypes of the offspring, and the alleles in the gametes. All right, 2/3 of the way finished. Here we go, a little vocabulary for you. The chemical factors that determine traits are called blanks. The symbol or symbols or letter or letters used to represent a recessive trait is or are what? Is it a singular answer? Is it a plural answer? I don't know. Figure it out. Which scientists use hybridization to make a new line of plants? Traits that are produced by the interaction of several genes are called blanks. All right, about 30 seconds, kids. All right, here we go. Chemical factors that determine traits are called genes. The symbol or symbols, letter or letters used to represent a recessive trait is or are what? Those are going to be lowercase letters. Luther Burbank was the scientist that used hybridization to make a new line of plants. And I believe this has already been in the game, but traits that are produced by the interaction of several genes, remember more than one or many, is polygenic traits. Let's see. Next up from Pyromania, photograph, Def Leppard. Okay, using the labels of different dominant and recessive alleles, explain how crossing over leads to more genetic variation in offspring. If you've got your sketch that you did that shows crossing over, it's one of those last things you wrote down on the back page. If you didn't ever do that assignment, pause this video, go look it up. How does crossing over encourage more genetic variation in offspring? So remember, capital A is a dominant allele. Lowercase a is a recessive allele. So you need to use those letters in your answer. Obviously, you're going to have some knowledge of homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. Remember, if crossing over takes place, it happens during prophase 1 of meiosis 1 during gamete formation. It and mutations are the only two sources of genetic variation in sexually reproducing organisms. About 30 seconds for you to wrap up an answer. Wrap up your answer or pause the video now. Here we go. Okay, so if you have no crossing over, you're only going to get big A, big B, or a, little b in your gametes. If you do have crossing over, you're going to get a big A, little b, or a little a, big B, or you could. And if you have different allele combinations, that means you will have more combinations of letters or more possible phenotypes or characteristics in the offspring. Okay, so if you mix those capital letters and those lowercase letters, and then you put those into a Punnett square, remember, on the top and on the side, you are going to get different gene combinations in the offspring, which may lead to new characteristics in the offspring. And new characteristics or more characteristics in the offspring mean more genetic variation. All right. Let's see, where are we going here? Oh, yeah, little Phil Collins. Okay. Rolling tongue is dominant to not being able to. A woman, heterozygous, and a man who cannot have kids, which means the man cannot roll his tongue and they have kids. It doesn't mean that the dad can't have kids. What is the phenotypic ratio expected in their children? White and red flowers are incompletely dominant to one another. A red flower is crossed with a pink one. What is the genotypic ratio expected in their offspring? So the way these points are going to work is if you set up the problem right, but you just don't get the right answer, you'll get 1 point for each question. If you set up the question right and you get the right answer, then you will get 2 points for each question. Give you guys a couple minutes to work on this one. And of course, I'm hoping that you find these questions and answers helpful. That's why I spend the time putting these PowerPoints together. time to record the video, time to upload the video, is so that you get something out of it. All right, about one more minute. "30 seconds. All right, thanks, Phil. On to Billy Idol, Eyes Without a Face. All right, about 20 seconds. All right, here we go. Answers are. All right, so again, 1 point for setting up the first question correctly or close to correctly, 1 point for correct answer. That's a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-2 rolling tongue to not being able to roll the tongue. Second one, let's see, 2 points, 1 point for a correct setup. It's a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-2, big R, big R, to big R, big W. Remember, genotypic ratio is the symbols or the letters. Phenotypic ratio is the actual characteristic itself. All right, moving on. All right, let's see. Okay. Units of heredity are called blank. True or false? Mendel used pea plants because they only have a single visible trait, which makes them easier to study. When Mendel crossed true breeding tall and short plants, meaning true breeding tall and true breeding short plants, all of the plants were blank because the allele for blank plants is dominant. If a Punnett square has big T, and big T, little t, the offspring will be blank. Give you guys about a minute for this one. About 30 seconds. Breaking it down. Ooh. Trying to stay here. All right, switch it up a little bit. Let the Music Play by Shannon. About 15 seconds. All right, here we go. First question. Units of heredity are called traits. True or false? Mendel used pea plants because they only have a single visible trait, which makes them easier to study. That is false. He studied a variety of characteristics in the pea plants. Let's see. When Mendel crossed true breeding tall and short plants, all of the plants were tall because the allele for tall plants is dominant. Remember, so we had big T times little t, true breeding tall, true breeding short. All of the offspring in the F1 generation were big T, little t. Big T is tall, big T is dominant, therefore all of the offspring were tall. If a Punnett square has big T, and big T, little t, the offspring will be tall because big T is the dominant trait and the dominant trait is tall. Here we go. Almost finished, kids. If a couple has 3 boys in a row, what is the probability that their next child will be a boy? Give me that probability in a percentage or in a fraction. And then compare and contrast Turner's and Klinefelter's syndromes. This question is going to take a few minutes. About 1 more minute. All right, The Cars Magic. Great album, by the way. Heartbeat City. Go and find it somewhere. Remember, for the compare and contrast question, you're always trying to get 3 similarities and 3 differences. If you can get 2 and 2, that'll certainly get you partial credit most of the time. In some cases, there are only 2 similarities and 2 differences. But write down as many as you can. About 30 seconds for you. All right, wrap up your answers. If you're not finished with your answers, feel free to pause the video finish them up, and then restart it. Okay. Remember, there is only a 50% chance or a 1/2 chance each time a child occurs. Although, if I were to ask you, what is the probability of having 4 boys in a row, that would be 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/4, times 1/2, which is 1/8, times 1/2, which is 1/16. So if it's this and this, or this and this and this, then you have to multiply the fractions. But if we're just talking about the next child, it is always a 50% chance or a 1/2 chance. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Both Turners and Klinefelters are caused by non-disjunction. They both cause sterility in the offspring. They both cause developmental and learning problems. They both result in anxiety. Differences. Whoopsie. My bad. Differences, let's see, Turner's is in females, Klinefelter's is in males. Turner's, there's 1 less X. Klinefelter's, there's 1 more X. There are a few other differences. These are just the ones I put in the game. Again, shoot for 2 minimum or 3 maximum similarities and differences. If I'm not mistaken, I can't actually access my last question, so we're just simply going random for 4. Random for 4. Actually, random is only worth 3. Oh, wait a minute. The end of the game. All right, random for 4. There we go. Random for 3. Okay. Alyssa and Mike, her brother, have brown hair, a dominant trait. Alyssa's son does not. Draw a pedigree chart. Hold on a second. Draw a pedigree chart, 1 point. And what is the husband's genotype? That's worth 1 point. What are the 23rd pair of chromosomes in human males and females called? Let's see. Do a little Madonna. So when I'm speaking about the husband, we're talking about Alyssa's husband. About 1 more minute. All right, we'll wrap up your answers. Again, if you have not finished your answers, pause the video, finish them up, and then restart it. Here we go. Okay, so let's see. This is Alyssa's husband. Okay. I beg your pardon. This is Alyssa's brother. That's Mike. This is Alyssa. This is her husband. It is unknown. We know that this is little b because they do not have the dominant trait. We can't really tell what Mike's second letter is. We'd have to either have some information about he and Alyssa's parents, or we'd have to have some information about Mike and his wife's child. And Alyssa's husband is unknown. Let's see. No, it's not unknown because if it is a dominant trait, beg your pardon, if it's a dominant trait and he doesn't have it, he would have to be little b. Okay, my bad on that one. And of course, Alyssa would have to be heterozygous, because if she was homozygous dominant, the child down here would have at least one big B. All right, I hope that helped you get ready for the test. Watch the video as many times as you want. Again, remember though, the video and the PowerPoint only represents a certain number of questions in the quiz. All right, signing off, kids, and we will see you.